welcome back to my channel. So for those who don't know me, my name is Tiara and thank you for watching. So today we're going to be discussing the new Netflix miniseries Dracula. This is not the anime. This is a series based on the 1997 novel by Bram Stoker. Netflix is taking their brand color a little bit too literally. We get it, y'all are team red. That could be translated to the color of blood, but come on, another vampire series. We need to stop. I can't take anymore after V Wars. It was a lot. And on top of that, Dracula has been done so many times and it's very difficult to stand out amongst the plethora of other Draculas that we've gotten. I mean, some of my favorite are like in Van Helsing, Hotel Transylvania, and I low-key was hoping that in this series Dracula was gonna say, I want to suck your blood, blah blah blah, but like he didn't, and it was disappointing. Created by Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, the premise of this is in 1897 Transylvania. The blood-drinking count draws his plans against Victorian London. This is a miniseries, as I said, and so there are only 3 episodes. So let's break the story down. Episode 1, we're at the St. Mary's convent in Budapest and are introduced to Jonathan Harker, played by John Heffernan, who is a former lawyer, and he looks so sickly and deformed, and just how the scene is set up, you can tell he stinks. There's just flies around him, and even one goes directly in his eye and it doesn't even faze him. He also has sores on his head and all of his fingernails are gone and it's just bloody. But the makeup and prosthetic design was done so well in this scene. I was eating and it almost made me gag. It was wasn't good for my Buffalo Wild Wings day. So Harker is being interrogated by Sister Agatha Van Helsing. Her last name is Van Helsing, and if you don't know the history or background with that, Van Helsing has been known to kill Dracula and kill any type of supernatural creatures. Played by Jolly Wells. She cuts to the chase, has a very blunt personality. She isn't really a nun in the traditional sense because she doesn't really believe in God. She constantly talks down on God and became a nun to get out of a loveless marriage and so she could keep a roof over her head because this is the 1800s. She asks if Harker has had sexual relations with Count Dracula because obviously he's contracted some type of disease based on his appearance, and he stayed at Dracula's castle. So Dracula is played by Claes Bang. The story is explained through the interrogation. We see Harker's backstory on how he met the Count. He's healthy and has a full head of hair when we have the flashback. Harker, being a lawyer, just drops off some documents for Count Dracula at his castle, and then he wants to go back home to England so that he can be married to his fiancée Mina. But the Count at this time was very old and frail. He had these gross, unkept, long nails, but Dracula was not letting Harker go anywhere. He informed Harker that he was going to be staying at his castle for a month, and that was the final say. Period! Off the back, there are a lot of red flags. First of all, that staying for 1 month thing, and I knew I was only going to stay a day. Not me, bruh. The castle is extremely dim lit, dusty, and there are flies everywhere, so I know it stunk up a whole bunch. And flies are a big part of this series because when Harker tried to swaddle at them, Dracula says flies are our companions at the end, trying to stop Harker from, damaging his friends. And then opening a letter, Harker cuts his finger on a piece of paper, and I thought this was going to be a Twilight situation.
He needs some milk!
But it wasn't. Dracula kept his composure, and when Harker tried to wipe the blood up because he thought it was no big deal, Dracula stops him and says, you must care for the blood like the blood is lives. So Harker becomes very suspicious of Dracula as time goes on and tries to find a way out of the castle and feels that there are others in the castle, although he sees no one. The castle turns into a maze where Harker goes deeper into the abyss, lost because Dracula said there are no maps for the property, and comes across some frightening creatures, the undead. Several zombie-like beings awake out of wooden boxes and chase Harker, one being a woman shouting Omora Ma, which in Romanian means kill me. Those beings turned out to be trapped souls who were tricked into staying at Dracula's castle as well, just as Harker was. The roles between Dracula and Harker become reversed as Harker now is becoming more frail and weaker and more drained obviously, and Dracula is looking very young, youthful. Now his hair isn't gray anymore, it's jet black, and he's even have a British accent now, because before he had a Romanian accent, but sipping on Harker's blood now and then, he started to obtain a British accent. Harker realizes Dracula is going to kill him when he's told to write future letters to Mina saying that he's returning home, and during this he kept hearing a baby, although we never see it. It kicks in a small bag and Dracula ignores him, saying there is no baby. But Harker, knowing he's going to die, configures one more plan to survive. He checks behind one of the paintings, the beloved of the architect who owned the castle before Dracula. Behind the painting are maps and layouts of the castle. The architect called his beloved the path to sunlight. Harker comes across another room of experiment, and it's Dracula trying to produce a perfect bride. The baby we heard appears in the worst CGI. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. It was so bad. It looked like a puppet similar to Gremlins, but worse. It was so much worse. The baby ended up turning into a vampire because he tried to feed it to one of the women that he held captive. But what seems like the end of Harker's story, as he's face to face with Dracula and he's brought to the highest point of the castle, Dracula tells Harker that he's gonna go to England and just slaughter everybody. He's gonna just have a buffet. But Harker says he's gonna stop him, and Dracula knows this and snaps his neck. Harker doesn't die because although he's very frail and weak, Dracula has been feeding off of him, therefore transforming him into not a vampire but the Walking Dead. Dracula said he was gonna make Harker his finest bride, and I was just like, okay, it's very progressive for the 1800s, but Harker declines and jumps off the cliff. So after this whole story during the interrogation, Dracula pops up to the convent, but he's in the form of a wolf, a black wolf, and his transformation back to his normal self is very gross. It was very disturbing because he cut through the stomach of the wolf, and he's like, it's like it was a baby being birthed. No, pregnancy is supposed to be a beautiful thing, but I don't know, whenever a baby is born and I have to see a video of that, it's really disturbing. But he rips open the stomach of the wolf and comes out and just stands butt ass naked in front of the nuns. The show still manages to pull the woman card, where Agatha tells Dracula she's everything he's feared, an educated woman with a crucifix on her neck. Okay, so Dracula was able to get in the convent because after a failed attempt of committing suicide, Harker invites him in so that Dracula can kill him. Dracula does a lot of damage in the convent and kills a lot of nuns. Episode 2. This episode consists of Dracula's voyage to England, and this is what we know he told Harker he was going to do. So this episode is set up similarly to the first one, but this time Dracula and Sister Agatha are conversating. He's telling her of his voyage to England, and the setting takes place on a boat. It looks like he took her back to his castle and they're both playing chess. So Dracula keeps his word and slithers in the shadows and kills bit by bit. One instance is he killed a crew member just to be able to speak German. So the ship was a dress rehearsal for Dracula for when he docked in England. He wanted to see how he could fit into the crowd and be unseen. He wanted to dine with humans and not lose control. But this failed because he ate all the people he dined with. He took the alias Balar, which in translation means Dracula, and set up the passengers to all be on the same ship, being their sponsor without them knowing the true reason why they're there, to be his dinner. Surprise, it's Agatha in cabin number 9. She is a sick passenger. Dracula basically put her in this trance. So it displays that whenever Dracula feeds off of somebody, he can communicate with them through their blood. He tries to spin the narrative on her, saying that she's the killer to all people on the ship, and she uses this in her favor as the crew is planning to string her up and hang her. He tries to confuse them and says that she's a vampire, and Dracula laughs at this, and right before he's about to kick the barrel that's underneath her feet and let her hang, she bites her lip and spits blood at him, and of course he goes into a frenzy because he doesn't really have self-control. First, because Dracula fed off of Agatha and she was still alive, Agatha is turning the same as Harker did, but that doesn't faze her because her #1 priority is to kill Dracula. The captain sets the boat to explode, and Agatha is then thrown into the ocean. Dracula is put in a coffin and sent to the bottom of the ocean as well. Episode 3, the Dracula awakened out of his coffin, and now he's just walking at the bottom of the ocean, and then he arrives to the shore of England. It's been 123 years since Dracula's been in the ocean, and we see Agatha and a team of soldiers meet him on the shore of England when he awakes, actually a descendant from her bloodline, Zoe. Agatha was her great aunt on her father's side, and with the SWAT team there, Dracula wasn't trying to be captured, so he turned into a whole bunch of bats and disappeared. But before this is where I find it so unbelievable. It's like he looked at everything and knew exactly what anything was. Now, if we're in the 21st century, that is completely different from the 1800s, and he just recognized what a camcorder was. I found that this episode becomes so comical. Once captured, Dracula is placed in a private facility, the Jonathan Hawkins Foundation, founded by Hawkins' fiance Mina and Agatha's family. They kept the foundation running for all those centuries, and now Zoe runs it. Apparently, Dracula figured out what Wi-Fi was, and a tablet was left in his cell, and everyone is so surprised that he contacted somebody with the tablet. Like, you have all these cameras, how did you not know he was contacting someone? So Dracula ends up contacting his lawyer because Dracula has rights. I mean, he's a 500-year-old vampire who's been killing millions, billions of people for all those years, and now he has rights. I'm confused, but apparently the law firm has been representing Dracula since 1897. So Zoe wants Dracula for his blood because she's dying of cancer, which is why when he bit her early on, he threw up. I see what they were trying to do, mix the old world with the new, but this wasn't it, chef. The first episode was interesting because it dove down into the origins of Dracula, and I always love a good origin story, but episode 2 to 3 just really lost me because the character development could have been way better. The random characters, like we're introduced to a character named Jack, and the random graveyard scene with the girl Lucy, it just didn't mesh well. I'm guessing Lucy was supposed to leave a message towards the end of episode 3 that the real beauty that matters is what's within, because Dracula, although he was very handsome to the physical eye, when he looked in the mirror he saw his real self, which was him being old and frail and, you know, ugly. But Lucy, her character was supposed to be very free-spirited. Everybody seemed to want her, and you know, she was the beautiful it girl. She ends up being turned by Dracula, and he tells her you shouldn't be cremated when you die. Because her family didn't know that she wasn't really dead, they did cremate her, and she just became fried. Like, she was just fried brown on all sides, like she was finished. That cosmetic work actually was really good too, because they completely transformed her. But that message of just like, no, the real beauty is what matters inside. Yeah, like when you're brown on all sides, when you're finished, you have no choice but to have a great personality. And she didn't really have a good personality, so she was just completely finished. I think what makes any good vampire production is the essence of mystery. And after the first episode, I think it was all gone. I'm also tired of vampires not burning in the sun, and all of the stereotypical things we believe about Dracula is all faked. Sunlight doesn't kill him. He doesn't need an invitation to come into somebody's house. But this was all because he's afraid to die. Yeah, so he's afraid to die, which is also why he's afraid to look at the crucifix, because, you know, Jesus made the sacrifice and he looks at that as something that he can never do. He started to believe all the myths that were created about him, and none of it was true. Dracula ends up killing himself by drinking Zoe's blood because she still had cancer. Trying to drink his blood to get rid of her cancer, it didn't work, and they both died. I guess my biggest problem with this series is what was everything we went through in episode 1 and 2 for. I can't buy the story that he was afraid to die, because you know that when you go out and kill a whole bunch of people, it's going to be some type of consequence. Maybe the thing is that he just didn't want to die alone, which is why he tried to create the perfect bride for all those years. Who knows? All I know is that I'm glad that this was only 3 episodes long, because I truly couldn't take any more. But let me know what you think about the series so far. If you watched it, make sure to comment your thoughts down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Make sure to also hit the like and sub button for more content. Follow me on my social media, and as always, make sure to have a blessed day. Alright, bye.